years of bloodshot mornings, skipped anniversaries, and weekends spent alone in boardrooms. I poured everything I had into that company, his company. I turned a sinking, rusty ship into $100 million empire. And then over roast duck and red wine, he looked across the table and said with a smile, "Your brother will take over now." Everyone clapped. Even my mother. I didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't even blink. I just reached for my glass and toasted along like it didn't feel like someone had just cracked open my chest and poured out the years. My name is Danielle, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever realized you were just a placeholder in your own life? That everything you were building wasn't really for you? That night, I went home to silence. My husband knew better than to ask. My daughter tiptoed around me like grief was something you could catch. But when I laid in bed, I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I didn't crumble. I planned. Because when someone steals your throne, you don't beg for a seat. You build your own damn kingdom. The next morning, I walked into that office like nothing happened. I wore white. I smiled at the staff. I signed 2 vendor contracts, reviewed an acquisition, and approved payroll. And then, at 2:13 p.m., I did something no one saw coming. Not even my father. Not even my brother, who was already redecorating the corner office like a spoiled kid unwrapping Christmas gifts. I hit send on an email I had drafted 6 months ago. The subject line was one word: separation. Within 10 minutes, my personal assistant walked in pale and said, "They're on the line, they're freaking out." Good. Because what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been quietly building my exit. The investors? They weren't loyal to my father. They were loyal to results. And I was the reason those results even existed. So when I sent that email, I wasn't walking out. I was taking half the company with me. They thought I was bluffing. I could tell from the way my brother barged into my office. No knock, no respect, just entitlement wrapped in expensive cologne. "Danielle, what the hell is this? You're not leaving. You can't leave." I didn't even look up. Just signed the final page of a document and slid it into a folder labeled Autonomy. "Oh, but I already did," I said. He scoffed like the world still ran on his last name. "Dad won't let you. You owe this company everything." That's when I finally looked up. "No, you owe me. All of you do. I made this company worth something. I was the one in this office at 2 a.m. while you were flying to Ibiza on the company card." He turned red, and I smiled, because for the first time he had no script, no inherited authority, just the raw panic of someone who realized the castle he thought he'd inherited didn't have a foundation. I stood up, walked past him, and entered the main boardroom, where the senior partners were already waiting. These weren't just men in suits. These were the people who had watched me pull this business from the mud and build it into a mountain. They knew, and now they had a choice. I laid out the documents, quietly, cleanly. A strategic split, all legal, all airtight. My division, the most profitable arm of the company, would become independent under my name. All the top performing talent, they were already on board. Because loyalty, unlike legacy, is earned. One of the partners leaned forward. "Does your father know?" I held his gaze. He will when his inbox refreshes. At 3:01 p.m., every stakeholder got the same message. Effective immediately, Danielle Wells will step down as COO and launch Wells Innovation Group, taking with her all digital assets, the elite client base, and 67% of executive staff. Phones started ringing. Panic buzzed through the walls like a fire alarm. And just like that, the man who thought I was just a placeholder realized I was the foundation. And I had just walked out the door with the future. My father didn't call. Not that day. Not the next. Instead, he sent a lawyer. Some fresh out of law school associate who knocked on my new office door like he didn't know he was walking into a lion's den. He smiled nervously. "Mr. Wells wants to open a dialogue." I leaned back in my chair, crossed my legs, and said nothing. Just let the silence stretch long enough for him to squirm. Then I asked, did he also want to open a dialogue when he handed over my company to my brother like it was a birthday gift? The lawyer blinked. He believes this situation can be repaired. I laughed. And it wasn't a bitter laugh. It was a laugh that came from somewhere deep. Somewhere that had finally stopped pretending. I don't repair things I never broke, I said. I build new ones. He slid a folder across the table. A counteroffer. Joint ownership. 50-50 split of the brand. My jaw tightened. He was trying to buy my silence, my absence, my compliance. I didn't touch the folder. Instead, I pushed my laptop across the desk and hit play on a video, surveillance footage from 2 weeks ago. My brother in the office conference room, laughing with 2 junior partners. Danielle? She's just good at cleaning up messes. She's not a visionary. That's what I'll bring. She should be grateful we're keeping her around. The lawyer swallowed hard. Tell your client, I said calmly, that the woman who just cleans up messes is no longer interested in sharing the throne. I walked him to the elevator myself, watched the doors close, then turned to my assistant. Send the announcement. She nodded. 2 minutes later, the news went public. Wells Innovation Group launches with $58 million in client contracts and a female LED vision for the future. It went viral, not because of me, but because women across the country saw themselves in that headline. In the woman who built something, got shoved aside, and chose to build again. And this time, without a ceiling above her, or men who called her grateful for crumbs. The fallout was immediate. By morning, half of their clients had jumped ship. Some out of loyalty, most out of logic. Because I wasn't just a name behind the curtain, I was the reason those contracts existed in the first place. Meanwhile, my brother, Jason, was unraveling in slow motion. He posted a passive-aggressive status on LinkedIn about betrayal from within. Then deleted it. Then posted again, quoting some business guru about vision over ego. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The market was doing it for me. 3 of our largest tech partners followed me to Wells Innovation Group. I didn't ask them to. They came because they knew what I built, what I protected. They knew I returned their calls at 11 p.m., personally handled launches, and once flew across the country during a blizzard to save a product demo that Jason had forgotten about. He had never been the face of anything, just the heir to someone else's sweat. And now he was realizing that crowns don't come with instructions. My dad finally called. 2 weeks too late. Danielle, he said, his voice tight, you've made your point. I stayed quiet. He sighed. You've humiliated this family. Do you know what people are saying about us? I smiled. Do you know what they're saying about me? Click. I hung up. That night, I found an old photo in a drawer. Me, 12 years younger, standing in front of the building on my first day as COO. I was holding a binder, so heavy it almost covered my nervous smile. I looked like a girl trying to fit into a man's suit. And I had, for 12 years. But now, the suit fit me. Because I'd tailored it myself. I walked out of the office, heels tapping against the marble floors of my new headquarters, and found my daughter waiting outside in her hoodie and headphones. She looked up and said, "They're proud of you, Mom." Who? She shrugged. The women at school. The teachers. Me. All of us. Something in me cracked. But it wasn't pain. It was legacy. Real legacy. Not the kind passed down. The kind earned. The threat started on a Wednesday. First came the legal email. Cease and desist. You have used proprietary resources in the formation of your new company. False. And sloppy. I documented every meeting, every asset, every hour of overtime I'd poured into their company. All of it unpaid. All of it mine in blood and ink. My lawyer laughed when he read the notice. Desperate men send loud emails, he said. Next came the Whisper campaign. Suddenly, anonymous industry blogs were publishing hit pieces. Sources say Danielle Wells poached clients unfairly. New firm led by disgruntled daughter. Can it survive without the father's name? They didn't realize those stories only fed the fire. My inbox doubled. Journalists wanted to interview me. Women in finance, tech, and law wrote me long, emotional messages. One read, "You showed us we're allowed to walk away and build something bigger." But the most unexpected message came from an internal source. A junior exec I had mentored during my time at my father's company. He DM'd me. Jason's trying to sell the company. Behind your dad's back. He's tanking it. I sat with that for a long time. 12 years of loyalty. 12 years of keeping the family name untarnished while the men attached to it tarnished me. And now? Now Jason was about to burn the very house he was handed just to prove he deserved it. But here's the part they always forget. While men fight to inherit empires, women build them. From scraps. From silence. From being told, it's not your time yet. I called the junior exec. Calmly. Firmly. Document everything, I said. And when the time is right, bring it to me. He hesitated. Danielle, if they find out. They won't, I said. Because they're too busy watching the woman they thought they could erase. And as I hung up the phone, I knew. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about accountability. And when it arrived, it would wear heels. By the time the board discovered what Jason was doing, it was already too late. The junior exec, Micah, handed me the documents. Internal memos. Secret meetings. A drafted proposal to offload the company's most valuable assets to an outside investor, a shell company Jason owned under a fake name. It wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. And the board, all those men who'd once looked through me at meetings like I was part of the wallpaper, suddenly found their voices trembling. We didn't know. He told us Danielle was emotional, unstable. He said you were going to sabotage the company. I just stared at them across that long mahogany table. You chose him, I said softly. You sat beside me for years, watched me bleed for this company, and still chose him. Silence. Then the chairman asked, "What do you want?" I smiled. The same way my father once smiled when he said, "Your brother will take over now." Only mine wasn't cruel. It was precise. I want full ownership of every brand I built under this roof. Every subsidiary, every trademark, every client contract that has my name on the bottom line. They balked. That's 70% of the company, one whispered. No, I corrected gently. It's 70% of my work. You still get to keep the 30% I had nothing to do with. Seems fair. They caved within 48 hours. The scandal broke on a Monday. By Tuesday, Jason had deactivated all his social media. By Wednesday, my father released a public statement blaming a failure in leadership. And on Thursday, I walked back into that old building one last time, not as their daughter, not as their COO, but as a force they could no longer define, contain, or deny. Micah met me at the door. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. I looked around. At the name on the wall, the furniture I'd picked, the empire I'd bled into. No, I said. It wasn't worth it. Then I turned and walked out, because I'd already built something better. And the lesson wasn't in what I got back. It was in what I chose to leave behind. The day my father showed up at my new headquarters, it was raining. Not a storm, just that slow, soaking kind that makes everything look gray and tired. I almost didn't let him in. But part of me, some faded daughter-shaped corner of me, was curious. He looked older. Not in the hair or the face. In the eyes. Like someone who finally realized the foundation he built wasn't as solid as he believed. He sat down across from me in the glass conference room I now owned. The silence was so loud it felt like another person in the room. Finally, he said, "You embarrassed us." I tilted my head. I saved you. Quietly, I might add. You could have gone down in lawsuits and SEC investigations. I kept the drama off the front page. He chuckled bitterly. You always were strategic. No, I said. I was always loyal. That was your mistake. You thought loyalty meant obedience. His lip trembled. He covered it with a sip of water. I raised you better than this, he muttered. I leaned forward. You didn't raise me at all. You used me. And when I built you a kingdom, you handed the keys to the son who never broke a sweat. His silence was louder this time. Then he whispered, "You know, I thought I was protecting the family name." I nodded. I am the family name now. He looked up sharply. That stung. Because it was true. Every press release, every deal, every investor worth anything, they all now called me. Not Wells and Sons. Not Jason. Me. Danielle Wells. I stood up. He stayed seated. I said, if you came for forgiveness, I'm not holding it hostage. But if you came to rewrite history, don't bother. His eyes watered. Is this goodbye? He asked. I didn't answer. Just walked him to the door, opened it, and let the rain speak for me. Some fathers build legacies. Some daughters become them. And some storms come not to destroy, but to wash away what never deserved to stay. 3 months later, my new company hit a milestone my father's business never reached in 5 decades. We closed a $40 million deal with an international firm that had refused to even take meetings with Wells and Sons in the past.
Why?
Because those rooms are changing. And this time, I was at the head of the table. No second guessing.
No leaning in.
No asking for permission to speak. Just presence. Earned and unshaken. I stood in front of my staff that afternoon, mostly women, mostly people who had been told not yet and not you. And I told them something I wish someone had told me years ago. No one can steal what you've already made your own. The applause felt like closure. But it wasn't until I got home that night, after the champagne and flowers and flashing cameras, that the real ending arrived. On my doorstep sat a gift bag. No name, just a card inside. To the one who made it without asking for a seat, you built the whole damn table. I recognized the handwriting. Jason. It didn't excuse anything. But maybe, just maybe, he'd learned something too. I lit a fire in the fireplace, curled up beside my daughter, and for the first time in years, I felt peace in my own silence. Because the truth is, I never wanted to take anyone down. I just wanted to be seen. And in the end, it wasn't revenge that gave me that. It was clarity. The kind that comes when you stop begging